Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday edition of GAI Insights Gen AI News Briefing. I am David Delalo. I am joined here by Luda and Tim. We may have a few others joining shortly. We are missing Ankaj today, so I will try to fill in amicably for his amazing services. Oh, and we've got John. Hello, John.
Morning.
So, as usual, we've got a number of articles to discuss, which we will rate as essential, important, or optional for our audience to engage with. We will look at what some former OpenAI employees are up to. We will talk about some stats on NVIDIA's chip performance, which, spoiler alert, is really good and industry leading. Hence why they have about 80% of the market of advanced AI chips. We've got a new model from Snap, a little bit of research, and we will dive right into these topics. Let me just pull up my screen here. I'm having to multitask a little today. All right, so this first article, we've got a new company, Safe Super Intelligence Inc. As you recall, there were a number of folks that left OpenAI, stating that they were on the safety team there, and were not happy with how that was working out for them, and they left, and now they've started up this new company here. What do we think about this, Tim?
Well, I think it's optional for the day-to-day AI leader. This is the entire website. If you want to read, so you can read it if you want. It takes about a minute. If you're interested in the soap opera and the drama, well, this is the clear indication that they were not happy and that they're forming this thing, despite all the protestations of how friendly everybody is. It's an announcement of a company formation. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and their mission is clearly a swipe. Well, it's their mission, but it also looks like a swipe at OpenAI, because they're basically saying they'll be working on creating, I think they're saying AGI without, I think, actually using the word. But their priority will be safety first. And so they want to create it in a responsible way. And
right.
Says specifically not be constrained by product cycles and such. So making a bit of
them, I hope they do it.
Yeah, they're going to need some serious money, right, to start training a new system. So
they will
see if the investors bite. All right, one vote for optional. Any other thoughts?
Definitely optional.
Optional.
All right, definitely optional. Let's go on to NVIDIA. So MLPerf is a set of benchmarks, and they rank various LLMs on different parameters, and they have found that, and hardware as well, and they have found that NVIDIA's hardware significantly outperforms others on some of the benchmarks, which is not a huge surprise. That's why everybody wants the chips. Luda, what did you think about this?
Well, I put it as optional, because it's just two specific ones, and I really don't feel so. It's a graph ones, and I believe LLM performance, right? So it is a good showing, but the most important piece in this article is that the competitors Intel and AMD are showing a similar performance. So it's just tells us that there is a fight that is going on, and it's advancing, but it's continuing. So for me, it's optional. It's a step in the right direction.
Any other thoughts, Tim?
I couldn't agree more. NVIDIA has the fastest AI chips. Shocking headline. The others are catching up. We'll see. They've been catching up for a while. They're still pretty far behind. The only interesting tidbit in this article is they all claim that they're now getting linear performance advances
Yeah.
So if you double the number of chips, you have the amount of processing time. That's a good thing and hard to do. And, I will credit NVIDIA because this is another, in my mind, case of dog catches car, because they designed these chips they're literally called graphics processing units. They were not designed for AI.
Yeah.
And over the last decade, they have really done a great job both tuning the hardware and the software for AI training and inference. So they've done a great job, and it's helped them keep their lead. And, we'll see if it continues.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the pace with which they're going forward on a number of fronts, right? Models, partnerships, chips, design. I mean, it's really this company is well managed at the moment.
Yep.
Yes, so many parallels that I keep seeing drawn in the news to Cisco. There was actually a good piece, I think it was in the journal that I was reading last night, and they actually talked to the CEO of Cisco at the time, and he stated, "Look, this is like a different ball game. You can't exactly draw the same comparison," and feels that NVIDIA will make it through. Of course, this is coming through from the CEO of the company that did not quite make it through the dot-com bubble unscathed. Their stock price has never been as high as it was back then. But for what it's worth,
if you bought their stock anytime before 1990, you could have retired on it. So
they did well for a while.
They did unbelievably well for a long time. Yes.
Yeah, Chambers. You're talking about Chambers?
Chambers, John Chambers. What Chambers was great at, which is, I agree, it's completely different from NVIDIA, was Chambers was buying 2 companies a week. And his ability to integrate those companies and turn them into revenue and profit, was nothing short of remarkable.
Yeah.
But, again, we'll see what happens with NVIDIA. It's hard to retain advantage in a commoditized market. These are commoditized markets at the end of the day.
Yeah, totally. It seems like Intel and AMD, if they're showing linear performance, are catching up.
Yeah, but as John mentioned, NVIDIA's been expanding what they do, right? And their cloud is growing, etc. So
yeah, you say they're commoditized markets, Tim. I'm not sure I agree. I think what the market is a combination of the lock-in from all the software and tools and so forth to use it, which is really pretty specific to tool. I think the hardware.
And they've done a good job, right? That is their lock-in right now. But if the others start to really approach them in performance, and there's a big cost differential, people will suffer the pain of modifying the software.
Yeah.
Right now, it's a no-brainer because they've got the lock-in, but they've also got the best performing products.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so we will go optional and O for obvious as well, I think.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Oops, we got a little pop up here. Sorry, guys. These are all scrolled down because I was reading them, so that I did my homework and didn't realize that Ankaj wasn't going to join till the end. So you're going to have to bear with a little dizziness for a second. So this is an investigative report by Wired.
Yeah.
And I have to say I was incredibly disappointed to read it. I'm a Perplexity user, and I feel like their strategy and the way that they're evolving the product has been in a way that I find pretty useful. But this article points out, among other things, that they may be scraping websites that have put up a block and said, don't scrape this website. They apparently have something that can go around that and is scraping the website. And then it also is sharing basically that Perplexity is, one of these companies that's kind of a wrapper, because they're utilizing several different models at the core, which you can choose between. They do have their own model as well, but I will say as a user, I do not use their own model. I find it does function better when you choose OpenAI's model. And they also note the other report that we covered, I believe, last week, where we talked about the commentary from the Forbes content lead, because they were upset that one of their articles had gotten pulled into one of Perplexity's pages where they share with their users through a newsletter a page that aggregates the news of the day. I actually received that as well. And they found the attribution to be kind of minimal and small, and that Perplexity was taking away a lot of traffic from Forbes. So starting to hear some noise around this product that is not good noise. John, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I thought this was essential. The reporting, I think, is very good. It is very specific about both the kind of prompts that they gave to the Perplexity engine and the kind of false or bad, including just blatant hallucinations. For example, giving it a specific URL to go at, and that doesn't do that. It just makes up an answer, and then doing a number of examinations of where the Perplexity engine, they don't know always exactly how it does it, but it's going around any of the protections for content that they don't want scraped. And then the presentation of it. So it's kind of the worst of all worlds, right? They're scraping stuff. They're claiming they're not scraping stuff that they are scraping that people don't want scraped. They're misreporting stuff coming back, and they're misattributing it. It's like the old joke, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? And I think the problem here is not it would be one thing if this were just a piece of their value proposition, but the core of their value proposition is that it is truthful, it is transparent, and so forth. And the responses by the organization have been horrific. I compare. We used to many years ago teach a case on Tylenol at Harvard Business School at Johnson and Johnson. And when there was a scare many years ago where somebody was putting poison in the Tylenol, and Ed Burke, the CEO at the time, went back on the J&J. I don't think J&J is the same way now, but went back on the J&J credo, which was about helping humanity, get better. And they pulled in a massive recall, and every single bottle. And he was getting advice not to do that, to minimize the cost and all that other stuff. He said, no, this is about our values. This isn't about money. And if I had seen a response like that from the Perplexity CEO, it's like, no, our values are that we're about the truth, and we're about, became transparent. Okay, people make mistakes and people live with that, but he didn't. He did, deny, deflect. I mean, he just, oh, really, it happened. So it's just it's sad, but I think it's essential because Flex is getting a lot of play, and this is the beginning of the inevitable backlash and so forth. And our AI leader both needs to understand it for the sake of understanding what's going on with Perplexity, but also to be prepared to deal with the fact that there are a bunch of bad actors out there.
With all due respect, I think it's noise. It really is.
Interesting.
Perplexity, so I rated it's optional. The CEO of Perplexity is not trained in public relations. He's a techie. He's a techie through and through. So his response was probably not mentored by the right people how to respond. But he's after a different level of web search. And the Wired article was written by people who were angry for how they were treated. They talk about hallucinations. That is natural. This, we know it. So there's nothing new about hallucinations. And they should, if you're using Perplexity, expect it. They do put references, check them. Read the articles before you use the information. I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff in there that I wouldn't put it anywhere for the executives to read yet. And they have certain, they can prove in certain instances, they saw in certain instances that certain things have happened. Great. But that doesn't mean that this is a norm in how Perplexity operates. They don't know how Perplexity operates. So it's not there yet. It's not.
I came in at important. And the reason I came in at important, I have a little bit of Luda's attitude, which is, okay, this is just a cat fight. And the reality is, of course, and Mauricio on our chat just said this, the reality is every language model does this. They all cheat. They all go around robots.txt. It's a fragile ecosystem that's voluntary. There's no enforcement. If you want to keep robots off your site, you've got to do a lot of work. It's really, really hard to keep them off your site. You can say Perplexity is a little more ham-handed about it because they deny this and then they set up and go ahead and do it anyway. Whereas the others are at least more PR correct in that they just don't say anything. It's my son who worked in the DoD long ago says, I can neither confirm nor deny this statement. We know they're all doing it. They're all, and this is unsettled law. If you have a public website and you say, I don't want a robot crawling it, what right do you have to say that, right? There's no settled law on this. It's a public website. You put it out there on the internet, okay? And
right, but Tim, I will note that it says that they're scraping paid sections as well. So
yeah, so they're right, and again, the whole YouTube and OpenAI. I mean, there's just a million of these cases out there where this is clearly complicated. Now, the reason I think it's important is twofold. One is we do give higher rating to important companies, and Perplexity is a fairly important company. It's not OpenAI, but it's probably the second tier right now. They get a lot of attention. I recommend them all the time to people. So it's important when these big companies get sort of articles like this that you're at least aware of it. And broadly speaking, it's a good reminder that, by the way, when you're doing research with a robot, you should check the work, okay? Because it may hallucinate, it may do crazy stuff. And if you're going to rely on Perplexity for anything complicated, then you need to be aware that the company clearly isn't performing A, as it says, and B, that PR at least isn't all that great. So it says something about the company. So those are important things for leaders to be aware of. But a lot of the other stuff to me is noise. That everybody's doing this kind of stuff, and it's not great, but it is what it is.
Look, also, if Perplexity dies because of all this noise, right, there will be another one. But the web search stuff is changing. It will change, and it will massively change. So
I think I hear you, except for the fact that their core value proposition is the thing they're not doing.
I don't know, John. I don't know.
They
And
say
the article couldn't say they're not doing it. They just
that's what Perplexity says about themselves. And as you use Perplexity, it says, looking up, verifying, the interaction. It's
right.
I hear you.
I also think you can.
Somebody's holding up a yellow sheet with a stain on it and telling me it's white. It's like, come on.
Yeah, but you have to be careful, John. You as an economist and business person should know you have to be careful not to draw conclusions from small samples. This is one article where they very specifically, as you said, they did a good job of saying this particular small set of articles show that they're going around robots.txt. That's the only thing they really showed, and that occasionally they do hallucinate. What they don't have, and what Perplexity didn't show, was, oh yes, that's true, but 99.7% of the time we don't, and our references are valid, which they should have done, unless it's not true. So that's why I say it's important, because there's a little bit of shadiness going on here, but it's hard to draw a conclusion that says Perplexity's not doing their job from a couple of.
Isn't that part of the problem, though, Tim? It's hard to draw a conclusion, right? Because they're not transparent. Exactly. We're going to come down. So you split the middle here, and that's where we'll put this. It was a great debate. We'll go to important. I think I mentioned this recently. So I was interviewed for Entrepreneur Magazine about how I use AI tools in my work for my content marketing agency. And the one that they keyed in on was my use of Perplexity. So you're going to see my face as a proponent of Perplexity. I think it actually came out yesterday. So there you have it.
I use it all the time. I use it all the time, and I find it generally pretty good.
Yes, I use it all the time, and I recommend it to people all the time. So I think this is way better than what we have in Google. I really do. So it's
All right. Important
there will be
news.
more of these articles, more coming.
I
And
like.
Perplexity CEO should get a coach, social.
I mean, yeah, they and how much money they
You should get a
good
backbone and some values.
All right, guys,
That
let's
would be
move on.
great for the entire industry.
We've got three more articles here to cover. Good debate on that one. We came down on important in case folks lost track in the spirited debate. So our next article talks about some former employees of Snap, and they have. Oh, you know what? I think I went out of order. By the way, sorry about that. So
Okay.
we'll have to adjust accordingly. So. Former engineer from Snap has launched this new site called Butterfly, which is a bit similar to Character AI in that you can build your own chatbots with their own personalities and such, but it takes it to a different level where you kind of put this character out into the social network, and there's also humans in the social network, and everybody's interacting together. So it's this big AI and human community. Of course, the creator says it's getting good traction. We will see. What did we think about this one? And help me out on who I assigned, because I can't look at the list when I have I have the screen.
John.
I mean, it is optional. I think it's it's a cool idea and so forth. I downloaded it, played with it a little bit. It's not quite ready for prime time yet. The image generation stuff is kind of funky, and but I think it's I think the whole notion of robots in the conversation, that's one of the reasons I think that's one of the top 3 reasons that I think the Gen AI revolution is a big deal, because we do converse with them, and I understand we conversed with things before, but I would argue it's materially better with the current set of tools. So big topic, interesting new thing, optional news, early days.
All right. Any other thoughts?
Agree.
Agree.
Yep,
All
I
right.
agree.
We will go optional, and we will move on to some research coming out of Microsoft Lab here about a new model that they have trained to do vision tasks. I can't see who I went to this one. I think it's Tim.
I think it was me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is optional. It's an interesting read over the weekend if you have time. As anybody who's been paying attention or listening to us knows, the visual generation from these LLMs is great in certain ways, but lacking in certain ways, particularly control over specifics. Like, it's still hard just to get text onto graphics, the right text in the right place onto graphics. There's lots of things that are hard. This is some research into a couple of areas. One is generating a very large data set that is much more annotated. So ImageNet, which was the big breakthrough for training imaging systems, is labeled, but it's labeled like, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is a butterfly, this is a flower. These are labeled in much more detailed manners with all the relevant objects on the screen, any labeled text, and they've done it using an LLM, which will be interesting because, of course, as we just discussed, LLM is hallucinator, confabulator, whatever you want to call it. And so occasionally they will make mistakes. And so the question is, will these be accurate enough? That clearly not making my cat happy. Will these be accurate enough to use as viable training sets to create better imaging models? So that's number one. They generated an enormous training set using an LLM to generate the training set. And then they have trained on that training set a small model that they compared with other small models that did very well and was much better at all sorts of benchmarks. So interesting research in the multimodal world. If they can improve graphics, that will be great, but optional for now.
Yeah, I agree. And it's coming from Microsoft. It's good effort. It's very comprehensive, great set, training set. Uh, I looked a little bit into annotations. They are quite explicit. So I think it's moving this whole section of AI in really great direction. So good effort, but optional.
All right, optional it
Great.
is. We have one final article, and this is not on former Snap employees. This is about Snap itself, previewing a model that apparently can generate AR experiences a little more easily, different way than you would build those right now. And this one was for Luda. What did you think?
I put it as optional for the reason that they are an expert in augmented reality, but by their own admission, it is still early days, and this is not really ready for prime time. They want it on, they have a little model or smaller model to live on device, and they've demonstrated that, but by their own admission, it's not ready. It still takes time. There's probably latency. I haven't played with it, or maybe I can't. But it's not ready. That's why optional.
All
Yeah, I
right.
agree. It's a product announcement. You know, we don't generally pay a lot of attention to product announcements unless there's something mind-boggling. And this is good, but it's not mind-boggling. If, as Luda said, if they really have a diffusion model or some sort of image generating model working on a phone, that would be really interesting. But as Luda said, it's not done yet. It's not released. We'll see how it really works. And again, we've been saying this, I think, certainly that 2024 is the year when all these firms are going to start to go into production with these models. This is still not even in production, but headed there. So this is one more example of a firm adding generative AI to its current capabilities.
Yeah, and if you scroll down, David, there are like three
There's some
running images,
examples, right?
and you could see that this is good, but it is not quite there yet, right?
It's not runway.
Right. No.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened yet, so for sure.
I agree with all the stuff. The one thing I put it as important above optional, just because I think this is where a lot of people are going to see. This is going to be one of the big venues in which people are going to see the next generation of AI is going to be, in the modification of these images in social media, and Snapchat's so huge. Some of the other areas. I mean, you look at the polls of how many kids are using generative AI in their homework and so forth. It's a majority of them. And, so to me, I think that this is going to be one of the big distribution points for AI. And so for that reason, I put it up to important, but I could go with optional.
All right. I think we'll go with optional on this one. As you know, I am a Democratic moderator, and we've got 3 today. So you make my life easy. I don't have to adjudicate anything. We've got to do one on optional. We will do a quick review here.
I just want to say, David, you have to remember the democracy killed Socrates.
I am firmly going with majority for most things, but minority rights.
No, but John, look, you are right, and I'm totally agreeing with you that a lot of distribution ability to be on the devices. That's the way the distribution is, right? So total agreement. But then for AR, right, for augmented reality, with all of its problems, right? So they're tuning it for that specific purpose. And it's good when they get this done, but it's really not for the mass.
Yeah, Walter asked an interesting question about, what are our views in relation to the idea of running models locally on form factor hardware tailored to the general public. I think it's a really interesting question. What the future architect, in my mind, what the future architecture of these things is going to be is still up. I think edge is going to be huge. I also think the question of what kind of weights and inference are you going to be able to put onto the device, and then where is the combination of general knowledge and private knowledge and general activity and private activity going to coalesce? So do I take a an open source model that's been trained on a bunch of public stuff, and then put it on my phone and just have it capture my behavior and do inferences on my life and my world, which is kind of what looks like Apple's doing, if you will. But I think the intelligence at the edge thing is going to be huge here, and where control points and transparency are going to be, I think, are up in the air. But I think it's going to be the smartphones that are going to bring both the functionality and the CPU cycles to really go the next wave on this thing. I think. Anyway, that'll be my answer.
The one wild card, which we'll see, because this did not happen with the advent of the cloud. The cloud to me is a great step backwards. It's a great step towards, let's have another mainframe computer, only instead of a single computer, it's a million servers owned by Apple or Microsoft or Google or somebody. But it's still a single point of control. It's a very large institutional effort. And, we were saying 30 years ago, Alan Kay, our friend David Reed, many others, the biggest supercomputer in the world is all the devices that spend most of their time twiddling their thumbs, like your phone or your PC. They basically spend 99.9% of their time doing nothing. So if you could aggregate, SETI, which was for extraterrestrial intelligence, did this protein folding, where you could download software and run it on your computer in the background and help these efforts out. So imagine if you could do that in real time, and you could aggregate a bunch of computers that people just gave you because they were basically sitting around twiddling their thumbs. You'd have something much more powerful than the largest NVIDIA supercomputer very quickly, and it could be close to you. Because if you know where things are and you have a little bit of coordination, those compute clusters could be quite close to you. I don't think on it. It's a long shot because we just don't think that will happen, because people just don't think that way. We like hierarchy, and the firms in particular like hierarchy because it enables oligopoly or monopoly, to John's business terms. And they like that. And right now, that's where we are. We have oligopoly. And they really like that because they just print money based on that. So we'll see. It is an option, though, that's out there. There is so much computing power on the edge that is basically unused right now.
Correct. And there was a lot of research that I participated in some time ago in distribution networks, because there's lots of memory swaps happening, right? When you're running out of memory, you put it away, you put some portion away and then bring it back for computing power. So if you have this network that Tim is talking about, and you have a way to leverage it across, whatever region.
The networks are fast enough now. That's the difference. The networks are fast enough. The devices are powerful enough that this starts to actually be viable.
Right. Now it's becoming viable.
Yeah.
All right. Good discussion as always. Walter, thank you for the question. We have a light reading day for everybody, which is probably good. I think people might have some things they have to catch up on because we've assigned a lot of reading for the rest of the week. Only article that we are advising you read today is the investigative reporting that was done on Perplexity, which we had a very spirited debate over. Thank you, analysts, for your views as always. Thanks, everybody who has watched. Walter, thanks for your question. Mauricio, thanks for your input. We will see you for our final edition of the week tomorrow morning, same time. Please sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already, and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you'll find a repository of these as well as other videos that we have posted for your education. Everybody, have a great day. We'll talk soon.
Bye.